Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Dark Ages. This will be a different type of video. I'm still messing around with the format a little bit, but I want to show you guys how well Doom the Dark Ages runs on RTX 50 graphics cards. I'll be testing the 5060 Ti 16GB model, the 5080 as well as the 5090. I'm running the launch day NVIDIA drivers, which of course are available for Doom. And also for your FYI, this is the early unlock, so this is not a press version of Doom. I coughed up money, so this is basically how you guys, I imagine, will be playing this day one. I will be using NVIDIA Shadowplay for recording, so it does have a small FPS penalty. And I will also just quickly go through the menu to give you guys an idea of how well it's fleshed out in terms of the menu. Now I will say there is a bit of a quirk, and I'll show you when we're running the game, but basically the quality settings really don't have a massive impact in performance. Shifting, for example, from Ultra Nightmare down to like high or what have you, the performance difference is really pretty small, but again I'll show you that in a moment. With that said, you of course have a support for frame generation as well as FSR, super resolution for DLSS as well as FSR. Field of view cranks all the way up to 120. I'll be sticking to 90 for this. All of my testing is basically going to focus on Ultra Nightmare. And yeah, I mean, generally I would say that this game is pretty fleshed out in terms of the options. I'll again just quickly go over these just so you can get an idea of how well it all plays. There's an abundance of stuff here to mess around with. And I think, so far anyway, it's a lot of fun. I haven't gotten super far into the game, but so far it feels very meaty, the combat. It definitely feels like a Doom game. I have to say, I'm still a little uncertain regarding just how much stuff is relying on the shield. It feels perhaps like that could be a little simpler than what I was hoping for, but again, I'm still pretty early and I have been enjoying it so far, and it definitely feels quite weighty. I will confess I am perhaps in the minority. I prefer Doom 2016 over Doom Eternal, so you can take with that as you will. But enough talk, let's start things out. I'm going to go up the performance ladder, so we'll start with the 5060 Ti, then of course move to the 5080, then finish the video off with the 5090. Let's begin. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Doom, the Dark Ages. We are starting out with the RTX 5060 Ti at 1440p. And just a quick caveat, I'm using NVIDIA Shadowplay for recording, so that's going to shave a frame or two off. But it should give you a good understanding at the very least as to the kind of performance you would get if you were to pick this game up and run it on your respective rig. Now again, 1440p. Ultra Nightmare is enabled, and I'm also using the max texture pool size. And for your FYI, I'm disabling things like chromatic aberration. It's not really going to have an impact in performance, but I just don't like it, so there we go. Just also to let you guys know, I'm not going to be getting too far into the game, so don't worry about spoilers. I'm going to just run across this opening section. Obviously later on it's probably going to become a little more strenuous on your graphics card and system, but basically you can at least get an understanding of how it's going to run. So DLAA frame generation, and we are getting with Ultra Nightmare around 50. So here's an interesting thing. I have found, even at the lowest setting, performance doesn't really increase that much. Around 60, maybe 70 on Ultra Nightmare with DLAA 1440p. And I had thought maybe it's because I need to restart the game. I've not run into that issue. I don't know if it's like a bug or something else is going on, or there needs to be some optimization stuff, but again, I can only report what I found. This also seems to be present with the 5090. The performance doesn't really leap that much. In fact, once you go over like high or ultra, the performance the performance decrease is pretty small. So for example, going from here to here, not much of a performance penalty. So really, what I'm trying to tell you guys is that upscaling of some description, so you do obviously have support with FSR, or you could of course run frame generation or DLSS, so that's really your performance metrics. With that said, DLSS frame generation isn't really going to help us yet, because quite frankly we need a higher base frame rate. So I'm going to go ahead and just play for a couple of moments at DLAA, and just to give you an idea of what we're kind of working with, and then I will start to increase the scaling and potentially run frame generation as well. And I will also run 1440p. However, you can probably guess that 4K. However, you could probably guess 4K is very, very difficult for this card. And so you're going to definitely want to run like performance or ultra performance with kind of a 4K output. Apologies for crappy gameplay, by the way. I'm mostly looking at the frame rate, so I'm pretty much just holding left and right while keeping my eyes on the frame rate. So if you're expecting a high quality Let's Play, this is not it, because I'm barely even taking consideration of the enemies. Well, mid 40s is like the worst we've seen, at least, you know, what I have looked at so far. So it's not bad as a place to start, but it's not really what we want. So I don't want to spend like 4 hours on each setting, because again, this is just a quick overview. So quality, frame generation, I'll continue to leave disabled. And what does that get us? Okay, that's better. That's a lot better, actually. 69, nice. 70s. I always remember this area is actually quite strenuous, so if we look down and kind of over this precipice, well, I think precipice may be slightly exaggerating it, but mid, you know, low 60s. Okay. And then obviously our higher points kind of in the 80 region. So this is not bad. This is certainly very playable. I think I would actually go as far as to say that if you're not particularly latency bothered by a tiny little bit of latency, this would be okay. To some folks in PC circles, that's going to be heresy, and I would understand if you say no way, 120 hertz minimum, my friend, and I would understand that perspective. But I could play this. Like, it's still better than what you would get on console, is what I'm trying to say. Yeah, I think we can probably go ahead and like bring out the big guns. So I'm gonna switch from quality to, what do we get with balanced? Let's bring some balance to the force. 83, 85. 90. Yeah, I think that's pretty stable, honestly. 90, 80, 90 frames a second. If we were to switch to a higher performance of DLSS, around 100. And if we enable frame generation, I'm not going to go to a times 4 multiplier. I think I'll stick to times 2. One thing I'll say about this is, at the very least, that the GUI is smooth, because my god, I was recently testing Final Fantasy VII Part 2 on the PC, and the menu navigation is to be very honest, the transformer model does a pretty good job, even at lower quality settings. But I would personally recommend like balanced or performance, or sorry, balanced or quality. So far, yeah, I would say that that's okay. It's not. It's actually. I missed a secret back there, by the way, just for your FYI. If you are playing the game yourself, look for a secret back there. But I don't want to spoil the game, as I said. So, okay. So, what about a more demanding setting? Well, let's switch to 4K, shall we? I think that's a good idea. And 4K. I won't go into the whole spiel of the settings again. I'm still rocking Ultra Nightmare. But let's just see what happens if I do switch this to the lowest settings real quick. So, low, apply. I mean, it helps, but not exactly ideal. So, again, let's just crank that back to Ultra Nightmare. And I think we can agree there's literally no point in me going any further without making significant use of DLSS. I think that anything less than balanced is not a good starting block. So let's just go straight to balance, see where that lands us. Okay, it helps. This is essentially the same kind of performance. Oh god, that was really dumb. This is kind of the same performance as 1440p, which makes sense, of course, given how DLSS works from the internal scaling. So I don't think that's good enough, I'll be honest. And I don't really want to use frame generation from there. Again, it's just not enough. So we'll switch immediately to performance, see where that... 57. Ooh. Okay, I'll play for a moment at 50 performance. But I still don't think that that's quite up to snuff. I think perhaps if you're not like super latency sensitive, you could probably deal with this. There's also naturally the ability to overclock. I'm using the 5060 Ti 16GB from ASUS, and that gives me a 10% power limit boost. I can't remember the exact settings I managed on the core. I think it was like 4 plus 400. And that helps with an overclock on the memory, but it's not going to be suddenly like 80, 90 frames a second. Well, my personal opinion, it's playable. I'd say that I could play through the game like this, but it definitely becomes quite noticeable. Frame generation would help with the perception of smoothness. I mean, I'll just show you guys real quick. Where are you? Where are you, frame generation? There we go. ×2. Let's see. Yeah, I mean, that definitely helps. Obviously, you guys are not seeing 120 Hertz or something like that on YouTube, so it's kind of difficult to illustrate. That definitely looks much nicer visually, I can assure you guys. There are a few slight latency problems. You can somewhat tell as I'm moving around. But it's certainly not awful, but again, it's not quite there. So I think we're going to have to go ahead, bite the bullet, and go to Ultra Performance DLSS. Okay. I mean, some of the fine detail definitely gets lost. But it doesn't look terrible, I will say. And obviously, oh, you know what, let's just not have extra complications with the performance. Let's just turn off frame generation. Turn off frame generation. So 90 frames a second. You can definitely feel you can definitely tell DLSS Ultra Performance on that. It's just running from such a low base resolution, but still, it doesn't look terrible. Obviously, asking an RTX 5060 Ti to go all the way up from, to play at 4K at high refresh rates on Doom Eternal. It's quite the ask, so it's not something Nvidia would exactly suggest you do, but you can do it. So if you're buying this card for mostly productivity and pairing it with a high, a large display with high refresh rate, then you can certainly play this, but you're probably going to have to use either performance or ultra performance DLSS. Welcome to the 5080. Now, I will be honest with you guys, running this game at native 4K, or should I say DLA 4K with the 5080 is just too much. We start to dip into the mid 40s in busier areas, and I suspect it could get much worse. So we started with the DLSS quality mode enabled. Everything else, of course, is set to max, such as Ultra Nightmare. Texture pool size is also maxed out, of course. Frame generation so far is disabled. And this is like a good base, kind of. This is obviously better than any of the, consoles could muster. It's going to absolutely destroy like the PS5 Pro, that type of thing, which is fantastic. I think if you're not someone who's super latency focused, if you're not super latency sensitive, this is probably a good way to start. But in a second, I'm going to enable DLSS balanced and see how that affects things. So I just want to get us to the top of this, because again, this area always hits performance, and you see that we're dipping a little bit here, like low 80s, mid 70s. So what do we get if we switch to DLSS balanced? DLSS balanced, yep, definitely apply those changes. It helped a little bit. I wouldn't exactly say it's a profound performance improvement. Now, obviously, you could start tweaking things by overclocking. I'm using the RTX 5080 as well as the 5090 Astral cards, and the 5080 actually is quite sensitive to overclocking. I have noticed that with other games where I've been testing, depending on the resolution, whether it's ray tracing on and off, that type of thing, you can certainly start to get like 5, 10, 15% improvement in performance. So that is something to be cognizant of with Doom. I also haven't noticed any issues with like VRAM limitations. You can see the amount of VRAM actually being gobbled up thanks to Afterburner overlay. We are, of course, hitting just under 12 gigabytes, so that's not too bad. And obviously the 5080 does have 16 gigabytes. I still wish that the damn card had 16, but ultimately I would say that this, for me, would be okay. It's not ideal for like a competitive shooter, but I'm not that guy anymore. I don't play competitive shooters. I would be perfectly okay playing this at like 100-ish frames a second. I know some folks, that is just no bueno, though. That's just not what you guys would want. So I'll just get us past this little section where I have to pick up this damn gauntlet, and then I'll crank up frame generation and also go with performance DLSS. Doesn't that look kind of cool? I think that looks cool. I think that looks cool. Yep, there we go. So that's actually not bad little area. Oh, never mind. We got some friends. Hang on. Let me just beat on these guys real quick. And that gets us ammo, of course. Cool. Alright, that's more like it. That's a secret. Well, I don't know if you consider that a secret. It's pretty obvious, but let's head on. Oh, never mind. We got a friend. Just pick those up because why not? Let's just head up here because I know there's a slightly demanding area just around this bend. There's a whole bunch of friends. See them? They want to make friends with us. Ah, well, aren't you just a nimble little minx? So, I would say that if we switch to DLSS performance, because obviously we're unbalanced at the moment, let's just switch to performance, see what happens. Okay, 100 and something. I'm trying not to kill things so that the crazy continues. So I'm going to do my best to not die while also looking at the frame rate and also not shoot things. So this is going to be interesting. Alright, so around 110. And if we switch back down to quality. $70 odd. Again, I would say it's playable, but I would prefer probably to sacrifice just a little bit of image quality by going with balanced. Settings, let's just see what happens with balanced. $90, $80, and with frame generation. Oop, wrong thing. Very clever. Frame generation. There we go. Okay, there's going to be a little bit of hitching there. 140, but obviously there's still latency associated with that. But we're at such a high base frame rate anyway, it might be a good... I think it's kind of like up to you. You could crank up the DLSS... so you could crank up frame generation to like ×2 and easily hit like a really good frame rate for great perception of smoothness. Or you could kind of go with like DLSS balanced or DLSS performance. But I think either way, an RTX 5080, you're going to get like a really nice experience. Okay guys, so I think now we're just going to switch to the RTX 5090 and see how we do. Welcome to the Dark Ages, powered by, this time, the 5090 of course. So, before we delve too far into the frame rate, I just want to show you guys what happens if we do crank these settings all the way down again. So, just as more of a sanity check rather than anything. And from mid-70s-ish, we go to around 100. So from Ultra Nightmare down to lowest. It's an improvement in performance, but it certainly is not what you would consider a big improvement, considering. And let me just go actually check on one thing. I have a horrible feeling that I did max that slider out. Sweet. So, with DLAA, the lowest frame rate that I've seen, again, in this beginning area is around the kind of mid-70 mark. So, again, it's perfectly playable, but I would prefer higher frame rates, of course. So, to that end, in just a second, I will switch to the DLSS quality mode, and that pretty much gets us between 100 and 120 FPS again in this beginning area. So I'll just go crazy, shoot some demons as you do. Hey, I don't look chappy. There we go. I know that they wasn't exactly doing anything. He's pretty much just minding his own business, but I took extreme exception to that. Alright, this is a nice area again. And, so 70, let's call it mid-70s. And leveraging DLSS, quality, apply, yeah. 106. And naturally, we also have frame generation. I'm going to go ahead and just turn that to ×2. Apply. There's a little bit of a stutter there. That wasn't the video. That is just how it is. Now, again, my monitor is only 138 Hz, so I'm certainly getting a lot of wasted frames at this kind of frame rate. However, it does make things absolutely buttery smooth. Night night. Do I need to show anything more with the 5090? This card is just absolutely ludicrously fast. But again, you know, for the price of this damn thing, it bloody well should be. If I have some extra time over the next few days, I'll probably test this with a couple of additional cards, maybe the 1490. But it's just a quick test because I was just really curious to see how well this game actually plays. One of the benefits, of course, is the id engine is that typically it is pretty well optimized. Doom 2016, for your FYI, is really quite astounding. This is somewhat off topic, but you can even do some crazy things. I think you can even go down to like a single CPU core or something like that with 2016. I don't even think you need, what's the word I'm looking for? Hyperthreading or SMT enabled. It's actually kind of fun. But yeah, I think that's just about it. So let's switch now our focus to the So anyway, guys, I hope you have enjoyed our look at the RTX series of graphics cards. Again, I will be covering much more stuff like this on the channel over the next while. So Doom. Let me know in the comments what you think of the game, by the way. I haven't gotten too far, but I'm very excited to play it. Of course, I'm a huge fan of Doom. I have been ever since the original 1993 game, and I don't think it's going to be changing anytime soon. Although I will grant you, I would absolutely love for a Quake game set in the original Quake universe. But I think that's just about it for this video. Bye for now.